Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. This is Sree Iyer, your host, and we are with Weekday News Capsule with Sridhar Chityalaji. This is episode number 37. Sridharji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskaram and good morning to you, sir.
Sridharji, let us hit right off of the blocks now with the news on the US elections. There's a lot to cover. Perhaps you can walk us through some of the main things that have been happening over the past 3 days, sir?
Yes, indeed. Well, there's been lots of developments over the weekend. So let's go state by state. Pennsylvania, the appeal for recount and disqualification of the votes was dismissed by the local courts, and they were quite specific, which is to say, to invalidate 7 million votes. In Pennsylvania would be preposterous, and that would not be the way to go in the absence of evidence. This is vast number of it is postal ballots, right, and the qualification of the postal ballots. So it may be going to Supreme Court, and right now the Pennsylvania court has kind of declined. So there's a circuit judge, and Sam Alito is the appointed Supreme Court circuit judge to address the Pennsylvania issue. As far as the Michigan is concerned, Michigan, there was a lot of questions around the two Republican and two Democrats. Initially, the two Republican observers validated and approved the verification. Then they subsequently turned back, which is to say there was a lot of exerted pressure from them, from outside forces, and so on and so forth. And they reneged on that. There was a meeting with the president over the weekend. President said, and both the president as well as the two observers indicated, there was nothing mentioned which is against the Constitution and or anything to do which is contravenous. So it looks like one of them or both of them may not sign off. So which puts into a very interesting spin what is going to happen to Michigan. They can't validate it without all four observers signing off, two Republican and two Democrat. So that's on the Michigan side. As far as the Wisconsin side is concerned, the recount is in progress. And it looks like the recount, there's been a number of kind of objections from the Republican side, and the Democrats saying, look, they're objecting to every postal ballot that is being seen for verification purpose. So how that is going to play out, we will know in the next couple of days or next day or two. That's on the Wisconsin. As far as Georgia is concerned, the recount is going to be commencing Tuesday. So therefore, they have time till Tuesday to order for a recount. It looks like the Republican Party would be going for the recount. As far as Nevada is concerned, it seems to be still in an impasse, which is the contention between the Republican side and the state around the process as well as the validity in terms of what the next steps are. So this is the general overview across the 5 states, and then of course on Friday, Mr. Rudy Giuliani, Trump's attorney, laid out a detailed plan. Was dismissed by the left media as another buffoonery. Even Chris Christie and others dismissed that part of it. He hasn't produced evidence. He says, I have evidence in the form of affidavits. Affidavits are evidence, but I don't need to show the affidavits to the lawyer, to media, as well as to the others. When the time comes, we will show it to the appropriate legal authorities. So they seem to have affidavits, which is acceptable evidence in court of law. And it looks like he is ready to take it to the Supreme Court. In the same press conference, there was Sidney Powell, who made a statement that there was a lot of issues around this Dominion software and the location of the servers in Barcelona, in Spain, as well as in potentially in Germany and other places. She had indicated that she called it as biblical evidence that she has, that'll kind of reveal itself and play out. And then overnight, yesterday, she has made a press statement where she has indicated that she is not employed and part of the legal panel of Mr. President. She has not signed an agreement. She doesn't have any retainer fees or retainer arrangement with President Trump, Mr. Trump. which was confirmed by Rudy Giuliani. And she is a lawyer. She can act on her own, and she acts on her own. That was his statement. And the Sydney Pulse press statement is very compelling, which is, I can share the to PGurus, and that basically indicates that she is fighting for the republic, and this is not about Republicans or Democrats. It's possible that both people, may be impacted by whatever she is doing. She has created an independent organization. She's collecting non-tax deductible fund, those who want to participate. But she says she's going to bring to bear, and she listed some countries like Hong Kong, Iran. Then she listed even
Serbia.
Yeah, so she listed Serbia as well, and she's listed some of these, at least 4 countries she has listed, which from where things could have happened. Venezuela was the other one, and she said, we're not going to allow communists and socialists to run riot on what is the sovereign republic of sovereign state of United States. So I think that that's a very compelling, a very profound statement, leaving no doubt in anybody's mind that there's nothing. People can always speculate. She was fired, dismissed, all these kinds of things. No, there's basically a very clear statement that she has issued.
Sir, what about Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State? He's been crisscrossing the world in the last few days one more time. What is happening with his visits in Japan and to Israel, sir?
Well, I think it's fascinating. There's 2 things. President Trump lambasted, over the weekend, immediately after his G20 visit, which is to say, Mr. Biden is trying to sign was trying to re-endorse the Paris Accord, which will kill the economy. In his address, in G20 video address, he mentioned the same topic, which is to say that, hey, we are ready, we can help on the COVID side, but as far as this Paris Accord is concerned, it's a complete bunkum and it's a nonsense, and so we would not be party to it. Now, Mike Pompeo, who is making rounds, and he took permission, and he was making rounds as he's on a week-long trip, which took him to Japan and also took him to, as you said, West Bank and Israel. He's making rounds to reaffirm that there's no change, and standing by the policies that has been in place for the past 4 years. Unless and until situation changes, the policies change. It also appears that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, and King Salman and Mike Pompeo seem to have met in Saudi. Which augurs well, because Saudis were supposed to be the next cab in the rank in terms of signing that peace accord, which to some extent the squad gang in United States has been opposing signing the peace accord with the West Asians or the Middle East, saying, these are all kind of totalitarian regimes and Israel should not be signing the peace accord. So Pompeo has been very active, on the state side, visiting various capitals and reaffirming the Quad commitment, as well as to the policies that they rolled out in the fag end of the presidency.
Sir, the next question that I had for you is, now Biden is starting to roll out some appointments. And from what I'm reading in the newspapers and in other media outlets, his Secretary of State appears to be a very good pick. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
I think Antony Blinken is a pretty good. He was an assistant secretary of state in the Obama administration. I think he's a good pick. Everybody in your audiences, looks at the India-U.S. vintage position. He seems to be a much more balanced person. He seems to he seems to have indicated that he knows India quite well, and he has worked with India, and he has. There was the strategic agenda laid out between Obama and Mr. Modi that the trade should multiply 8 to 10 times, and trade and other strategic themes should or is the basis of the Indo-US partnership. Well, those seems to be the words in the last interview that he had given. He is considered somebody who is fairly experienced in this specific in the State Department. So I think India may find it much easier to work with. I would say the same with Southeast Asia, because Southeast Asia, South China, Quad, Pacific, and India, or the Himalayan region now, as it's called now, the Greater Himalayan region, which is India, China, and those countries. That's going to be the strategic theme of the state policy, because everything hangs around, how China needs to be combated. The EU is already in place, so he seems to be a good choice by Mr. Biden, contrary to some other names that was floating around.
Sir, quickly, let's take a look at the COVID vaccine updates, and then we can go on to India, where there is some significant news coming out.
I think the COVID situation is there's rising cases in COVID, right? There's roughly today, as we speak, close to 59 million cases. We're just shy of 60 million cases, of which close to 40 million people have recovered, and active cases is 16. 40 million people recovered is about 66% on a global basis. If you take the US has got about 12.59 million cases, and then total recovered is around 7.5. So United States, but it is rising cases. We discussed it in the last, I don't want to belabor that point, which is namely that there's more shutdowns and more kind of closures coming. India is again doing pretty well. Brazil is not bad. The most important news is with COVID situation is the vaccines have evolved. So the vaccines, the first set of vaccines are likely to come into United States for treatment by even mid-December. Programs being rolled out. Moderna, we talked about, Pfizer, then even what you call Eli Lilly has got permission. Johnson & Johnson has got permission. AstraZeneca, which, the numbers was floating around 90%. They seem to be hovering to around 70% kind of the success rate. Regeneron, which is seems to have got the plasma treatment, seems to have got the endorsement, which was something taken by President Trump. And there's a lot of criticism, which is to say, he did not offer that because those in the initial state and those in the early stages and, can avoid hospitalization and have a quick, discharge or quick outpatient treatment protocols applied to them as to why it has not offered to others. Well, when he took it, it was not, tested by FDA, but now they got an accelerated approval within 3 weeks, and it's now, likely to be rolled out to people. So COVID was the focus again in G20 meet, because we can cover this in one single instance. Everybody is behind COVID. So they see the next 2 to 3 years, 2 years at least, 12 to 18 months, if not 3 years, that COVID and global distribution of vaccines and treatment protocols being applied to be the theme. So I think my view is that by the time we come to Christmas and early January, I think we may be on the way to saying, okay, this is here, we have to deal with it, and we have tools available for us to do it. In United States, the pharmacies like CVS and Walmart are coming forward to say that they can be the testing centers. They can also provide outpatient beds and all those kinds of things. So things are moving quite well in that direction.
And a final look at India. A lot of things happening in India. Philippines has signed up for the BrahMos missiles from India, along with, I think, there was one other country before that. I think it was Indonesia. So I can see that there is a shift, at least perceptible shift, away from China and towards India, at least in the acquisition of arms. What do you make of this significant development and all the other initiatives that the Modi government is rolling out?
I think the Quad, just to address the first part of it, is Quad gave an opportunity for India to be very tightly integrated with a number of countries in the South China, Southeast Asia, Indian Ocean, Pacific Rim. So India has broad agreements with many countries around. If you recall, Vietnam was one of the first countries which placed 2 surface-to-air BrahMos missiles. Now it looks like Philippines is in the process of signing the joint agreement with Russia and India for that. Indonesia either has signed or is in the process. So India is emerging as one of the strategic partners in deterrence to what's happening with China. The other important facet is Vietnam was also invited to the ASEAN meet. ASEAN is Association of Southeast Asian Nations, which is which was these nations in Southeast Asia. They expanded with Vietnam and Thailand, with Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and so on, when those countries came online. So I think India is doing quite well, and which is the reason why they say they don't need RCEP, because they have these bilateral partnerships. In terms of what is going on within India, there seems to be, very strategic focus, maniacal execution that Modi ji has known to become this specific term. Food processing was one of the biggest neglected sectors. So he's now rolling out allocated budget, food processing, and I think either 6 or 8 states have been chosen to be, including Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, UP, Maharashtra, Gujarat, etc. Because quarantine, and processing and preservation was one of the areas where production was not the issue, but the preservation and the storage was one of the main areas of neglect. Now it can be also exported. So that's one thing that is one of the big areas of focus. Second area of focus is around the Northeast. The second area of focus is around the development of the railways. Mr. Piyush Goyal has come up with a 2024 plan, both to eliminate the manned crossings as well as the unmanned crossings, as well as developing the infrastructure. Again, you will see that Northeast gets a due importance. So Northeast has become the centerpiece of Modi's strategy, which is to say it's not only deterrence, but it also to build those things in terms of the look east conduit from his trade point of view. One more area is the infrastructure. He continues to build infrastructure without taking his eyes off the ball. I think 72 new roads and crossroads and bridges are being constructed. So that's why the statement that doesn't matter what China does, we are prepared because we have to kind of, deal with the situation as the situation comes. I think he has launched, because water was one of the biggest areas to bring water in this particular phase of his election promise. So Uttar Pradesh has been, and Uttar Pradesh and few other states have been chosen. I don't know the specific terminology or the name, but again, he seems to be moving forward with the water schemes, bringing water to the rural households, rural. So he feels that his capital and per capita focus is around the rural. He believes that if the rural per capita is increased with all facilities and amenities, then the general per capita will kind of go up, and India can become a powerhouse in terms of the domestic consumption. There's no point in having urban; the rural needs to be built. So it's really very admirable to see such maniacal focus around execution and the specific schemes targeted at people.
Thank you very much, sir. And that brings us to a close on today's news capsule. We'll be back tomorrow, same time. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel and also to donate to PGurus. Namaskar. And Sridharji, as always, a pleasure to have you on our channel.
Namaskar ji. Thank you so much.